You are watching the Global Gamers Invitational Tournament brought to you by iFixit. SCVs for the real world. The Handsome Nerd attire for the handsomest of nerds. And Esports United, sponsored by Intel. This broadcast is also made possible by IC Cup TV, TeamLiquid.net, and of course, Blizzard Entertainment. Alright, so we are back with the Global Gamers Invitational, Dimaga versus DarKFoRcE Game 1. Before we get too far into this match, I do want to thank those sponsors once again. iFixit, SCVs for the real world, but also Esports United, sponsored by Intel, and of course, the Handsome Nerd, attire for the handsomest of nerds. We are here on Metalopolis, and we are on close positions.
Yep, so definitely not going to be what DarKFoRcE wants to see here against Dimaga, just because, again, he's most likely going to go something aggressive versus you as an opening, because his control is so good, and Dimaga is such an aggressive player. In Zerg vs. Zerg, his Banelings are out of this world. Early on in the beta, he was put up against a Korean player, and everybody's like, oh my god, he was like listed as probably one of the top Zergs at the time, and I think he wound up losing 4-3, but had some excellent games all around. And his Zerg vs. Zerg is just one of the best out there right now.
Now, not to take away from DarKFoRcE, of course, he is also a solid player. I've seen him play several games. I remember I cast a bunch of his practice matches with Sox, so he's an excellent European player, knows his stuff. I've never actually seen him Zerg vs. Zerg, however, so this will be the first time I see him, and certainly up against a very solid opponent.
And Dimaga is at 15 supply, and he has not dropped an extractor yet. So it looks like he might not actually be opening with Banelings, which is a little bit unexpected for Dimaga, because he does have a reputation of being super aggressive and very good control with his Banelings. Looks like he's going to go for a hatch first build. He's up to about 400 minerals chasing around this drone of DarKFoRcE, and he's going to have to drop a pool here in a moment, or else he's going to be in a little bit of trouble against DarKFoRcE, who's almost done. There we go. He does drop that pool. Still trying to drop the hatchery, but very atypical opening here from Dimaga. Was probably hoping to catch him by surprise, but DarKFoRcE did scout it out, and oh, he almost blocked it a second time with a follow-up drone.
And it should be noted, this Dimaga did respond well. He did spend an awful lot of minerals. He just barely got the minerals up again to build this hatchery, so he isn't terribly far behind. But he is leading by 2 workers, behind on his spawning pool, behind on that speed, so he will be suffering a unit disadvantage. So we'll just see if he can leverage that income to try and defend what I imagine will be an early push coming from DarKFoRcE.
So his spawning pool is finishing up. Baneling Nest is being produced by DarKFoRcE. His speed is already in production. By the time he gets his first couple of Banelings morphing, he should have that speed finishing. So he's going to be able to make a really aggressive push onto Dimaga, like you said. And Dimaga is put into the very unusual spot for him as being the defender in this situation.
Yeah, I noticed Dimaga throw down 2 Spinecrawlers. I imagine that at least one of them, if not both of them, will be destined to climb up and move down into the natural expansion, because there will be some serious Zergling pressure on the way. Zergling speed almost done, Baneling Nest almost done, so definitely some room for DarKFoRcE to put some terrible pressure on, and Dimaga's going to have to do his best with Queens and Spinecrawlers to delay this long enough for him to use that minor economic advantage to leverage himself into an actual position where he can attack.
Yeah, but now there are 6 Banelings being morphed by DarKFoRcE. There's still no gas from Dimaga, no sign of a Roach Warren, so I'm not entirely sure how he's planning on holding off what must be a Baneling push when he sees this many speed Zerglings pressuring him early on. Banelings are running in. He's trying to keep his ramp blocked up, but the Queen was out of position since those Zerglings were blocking as well. So the Queen is going to have to very, very slowly creep her way back up onto his main base. And these Banelings are just running straight towards the drones. Spinecrawler placement, he has no time to adjust that. Does save all the drones, great control by Dimaga, but does lose the 1 Spinecrawler in the process. So Dimaga's at a really tough spot. He really needs roaches, since he has no possible way of getting Banelings out, but he hasn't even started gas or the Roach Warren.
That being said, he did win that last encounter, so there is an opportunity for him to just use superior skill control to try and win this game, but those Banelings are just such a liability right now.
Yeah, and it looks like DarKFoRcE is just rallying so many units up here. The lack of Zergling speed is really hurting Dimaga right now, as there are several speed Zerglings running around in his main base that he's just not able to catch up with. He cannot stop DarKFoRcE from harassing him to death with these Zerglings. And as long as he controls these really well, these will be alive for a long time, sucking the focus from Dimaga, while DarKFoRcE will possibly be pushing in the front again.
And he needs focus because DarKFoRcE has more Banelings morphed out front. Dimaga having transferred almost all of his workers to the natural expansion, because interestingly enough, it is in fact his natural that he's better able to defend, which very unusual to see.
Yeah, and that's all because of that Spinecrawler that he has there in some nice position. He's actually building extra Spinecrawlers at his natural as opposed to his main. He's going to try and hold off these pushes, keep them from even getting into his base. DarKFoRcE is still running these Zerglings around in Dimaga's base. He did lose one, but the 3 Zerglings are still a threat to the couple of drones that are in there. Dimaga does want to try and keep those alive if possible, but Dimaga does catch him as he's trying to take out a drone. So now those Zerglings are finally dead. DarKFoRcE is positioning as if he's going to move in again, but he keeps dancing in and out, making Dimaga spend even more and more money on these Spinecrawlers.
Yeah, Dimaga recently had as much as I think it was an 8-worker lead, but he has closed, DarKFoRcE rather, has closed the gap. He clearly, during that micro inside Dimaga's base, was droning up as he really needed to do, because this early aggression was not as successful as DarKFoRcE would have liked. The one thing he does have going for him, however, is Dimaga has laid down what is now 6 Spinecrawlers, so a huge investment in terms of minerals and drone loss, and hopefully he can use that to either put a serious attack in or expand. I'd rather see an expansion right now. This is a very, very difficult base to assault, and assaulting Spinecrawlers or any static defenses is never a good idea.
Yeah, but if you look back at DarKFoRcE's base, he did just finish his Spire, or layer, which will allow him to get a Spire down in a moment, and that's huge since Dimaga only just started mining gas. He's going to be very far behind in the tech. He never even got roaches out on the field, just relying on lots of Spinecrawlers and some Zerglings. So he's very delayed, so even though he has more drones still, by, a decent margin, 8 drones is a lot in Zerg versus Zerg. He just isn't in the position to capitalize on that, because if he makes a lot of Zerglings, then DarKFoRcE can just blow them up with Banelings.
Yes, and certainly we're seeing the Spire down already for DarKFoRcE. He's going to be able to leverage those Mutalisks, use them to harass Dimaga in a new way, and Dimaga really hasn't made it into lair tech yet, just started recently. So I think it's going to be a race between Mutalisks and probably Hydralisks. If I were in Dimaga's shoes, and I am certainly the wrong guy to ask, I would go for Hydralisks, just because the only way you can win in a Muta-on-Muta battle is just to have a huge advantage, and he's so far behind on the gas. He's better to use his money on a Roach-Hydra combination, push the creep forward, and put some pressure on his opponent's base, forcing those Mutalisks to defend. But a lot of this is going to come down to timing. We'll see the Roach Warren and the Evolution Chambers already up, so it does look like he's doing that, but we'll see if... actually, I have to know this now. 5 Queens now moving out, pressing the creep, so Dimaga is getting ready to attack with what will be a Roach and I imagine Hydra army.
I'm not entirely sure if Dimaga... How much scouting information does he have right now? He did see the late expansion with the gas still coming. So if you look at the gas numbers, Dimaga... Yeah, he does drop the Hydra Den. He was in a position where he may have been able to get more mutas, even just because he got his expansion faster. But he's going to go for a bit of a safer choice in this position to get those Hydralisks out, go Roach Hydra. Problem is, without Infestors, if DarKFoRcE does a really good job with his Mutalisks and he gets a lot of them, he'll be able to just completely dance around the map. Fly circles around Dimaga make it really tough for him to shut it down.
Dimaga clearly anticipating the Mutalisk harass, so he's already laying down Spore Crawlers inside his mineral lines, getting ready for that Mutalisk harass. And once they're dancing around, like you said, there's nothing you can do short of Infestors to just immobilize them and kill them off. But the other option always available is if you attack your opponent's base, it forces the Mutalisks, who are a part of your army, to come back and defend. And Mutalisks just not a good unit in a stand-up fight. And Dimaga does have those 5 Queens grouped as a unit that he's clearly planning to use as an aggressive force.
Yeah, and he has to be really careful because he does not have his roaches out yet. So right now, he's got these queens, the zerglings, and the hydras against possibly any number of banelings. He's not sure. And all of those units, except for the queens, can just be completely blown up by banelings. The hydras especially are a very costly investment. So he does have to be really careful. First several roaches do come out, and he's going to have to control this very well. That's what, Dimaga is known for, is his great unit control. So we'll have to see how he pulls this off, but any other player would say this would be extremely difficult. But Dimaga, I do think, has the capability to control this just right and be able to push in here and do a lot of damage.
We just saw DarKFoRcE there with a detector. He actually morphed in an overseer and flew it forward to kill the spore colonies. The creep colonies. Creep tumors, that is what they're called, to push that creep back because he's feeling the pressure. He does have the mobility advantage, but if those queens can move right into his base, his Mutalisks no longer have that mobility advantage. And you'll see once again he is trying to move out and harass with them. But Dimaga looking absolutely terrifying, a massive 13 lead. His army is now considerably larger. He has not wasted any money on those expensive Mutalisks. And he's slowly going to advance those spine crawlers forward using the queens as gigantic bags of hit points, which is really all they are. And now a very robust Hydra and Roach army, 1-1 upgrades. He is ready to really put the hurt on DarKFoRcE.
If you look at the amount of energy on those queens, he's going to be able to throw out a lot of transfusions. And again, with Dimaga's really good micro, that's going to be really scary. DarKFoRcE does have a lot of banelings, which is going to be the only thing that's going to be able to nullify those transfusions, to flat out blow it up before it can get healed. One Hydra does get poked to death by those spine crawlers. That is so many spine crawlers by DarKFoRcE. And the supply differential right now... Oh my god, hang on. Pause, please. I hit the T button.
Oh, an honest mistake. I am also paused on this end.
Okay.
The attack is about to happen. I'm sitting at 1547, so you can tell me when to begin. And we're about to see what is almost certainly going to be the last battle of this match. So many spine crawlers, but will it be enough to hold back these roaches and hydras? Yeah,
for people who are not familiar, the T button completely restarts the replay. So there we go. I'm good. Let's restart in 3, 2, 1, go. And all these spine crawlers, just so much of an investment. And if you look at the army size, where Dimaga has like an 80 food difference, you got to be thinking that's part of it right there. Just count those spine crawlers. There's 11 on the field here for DarKFoRcE. 1,100 minerals. Could be so many units. Dimaga is pushing in with this big force and just doing so much damage. If the banelings run in, they don't blow up a whole lot of units. Dimaga's just completely tearing through the static defenses of DarKFoRcE. And I have to believe that's GG. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, watching that battle, I unfortunately was lagging a bit, but that gave me the advantage of seeing how many transfusions. There were a ton of little brown aura things being dropped all over the roaches, the queens, the hydralisks. Dimaga was just all over DarKFoRcE on that attack and cleaned up quite handily.